This is Mitch, and welcome to the Real Estate Investor Summit podcast. I'm here with my friend Rod Khleif, and we're going to talk about something that I've never had the chance to talk about because I never met anybody that made this big a move. One, he was big enough to acquire $50 million worth of real estate, and then he was unfortunately in a position where he lost $50 million worth of real estate. We're going to talk about the two mindsets. The mindset that it took to build a $50 million portfolio, and then the mindset that it takes to overcome a $50 million loss. And these are two very gigantic mindsets. Could have crushed a person on either end and never got that far. But I would like to pay homage to my sponsor, taxfreefuture.com. If you don't have a tax-free or tax-deferred investment account to which to grow your retirement fund or your finances, you have no idea the size of the tool that you are missing from your tool belt. Please go to taxfreefuture.com. Give the little micro information there. We promise not to beat you up with a bunch of endless stream of emails every day, but do that and get in to see the little 37 video vignettes. My favorites are the ones that teach you how to take a little bit of money in those accounts and make it into a whole lot of money, even though the rules say we're only supposed to be able to grow at X amount per year. You talk to the experts, we figure out how to proliferate. So, taxfreefuture.com, thank you for sponsoring us today. All right, Rod, how you doing?
Good, brother. Let's have some fun today.
You look like you're sitting in a very beautiful place. Where are you?
Well, that's actually my backyard, but it happens to be a green screen, but it is my backyard. I'm pretty blessed that we have this place.
Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm in Sarasota, Florida.
All right, good place.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a lot of ground to cover in a little bit of time. So let's start with the basic. Fill us in on who you were before you started this uphill climb for $50 million.
Sure. Yeah, and by the way, that wasn't $50 million worth of real estate. That was net equity. It was a whole lot more than that. But painful, even more painful than your description. But let me get into it because there's a pre-frame to this, and with any crisis comes opportunity. So let's talk about that. So I immigrated to this country when I was 6 years old with my brother Albert, my mother's Vantje. I immigrated from the Netherlands. I was born in Holland. And ended up in Denver, Colorado, where we lived for 30 years. And we didn't have much. In fact, I wore clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all the way through junior high school till I could get a job and buy my own clothes. And, we drank powdered milk because my mom thought milk was healthy, and ate expired food because that was cheaper. And I'm sure you've got listeners that had it harder than we did, but I knew I wanted more. And I knew I wasn't going to settle for that. And my mom was a bit of an entrepreneur, and she had an incredible work ethic. So she babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. And with her babysitting money, she bought the house across the street from us when I was 14 for around $30,000. And when I was 17, about to graduate from high school, she told me she'd made $20,000 in her sleep. And I'm like, what? You didn't do anything? You made $20,000? Screw college. I'm getting into real estate. So I got my real estate broker's license right when I turned 18. I was a broker, believe it or not, because you could do it with education back then. They finally wised up, and you have to have some experience now. But I wasn't just an agent. I was a broker. And so I was going to be rich in real estate. Well, my first year, I maybe made about 8 to 10 grand. This is 1978. Second year, maybe 10 to 12 grand. But my third year, I made over $100,000, which back in 80 or 81 was a decent chunk of money. So what happened between year 2 and year 3? What happened, Mitch, was I discovered, I worked with a guy that taught me about the importance of your psychology and mindset, and how really that 80 to 90% of your success in anything is your mindset and your psychology. Only 10 to 20% is the real estate stuff you and I talk about on our podcast. It's really, if it was just knowledge, there'd be a bunch of wealthy librarians and college professors out there. You have to actually take action with what you learn. You have to push through fear, push through limiting beliefs, or even worse, get uncomfortable. A lot of people are comfortable, and the comfort zone's a warm place, but nothing freaking grows there, right? And so, fast forward to today, I've owned over 2,000 houses that I've rented long-term. I've had multiple apartment complexes in 3 states. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. But there's a punchline. When that happens, people can tend to get a big head. Well, that happened to me. I thought I was a freaking real estate god. I did the math on it. It's like $8,500 an hour over the year. And when you get a big head, sometimes God or the universe, whatever you believe, will give you, a smackdown. Well, that was 2008 for me. I lost that 17 million, a whole lot more. Like you said, I lost $50 million. And I thought I was set for life, brother. I thought, 80 million baby boomers getting old and getting cold. I thought I was good. But I completely crashed and burned. And so what I enjoy talking about on my podcast and also, my live events is the mindset it took, like you said, to have 50 million to lose in the first place, but then what it took to recover from that. And some people don't. I mean, back in the Great Depression, people jumped out of buildings for losing less than that equivalently to, today's dollar. And so the mindset it took to come back to the success that I have today. So, if you'd like, I can drill down on that topic a little bit for you, Mitch.
Well, so, I mean, what was the lesson learned? I'd like to start with what was
Sure.
Let's
talk about that.
Because that's what you spent $50 million to learn something.
Oh, it was a seminar. I call them seminars. I've had lots of seminars. That was my biggest, hopefully the only one that'll ever be that big. But we fail our way to success, Mitch, and you know that. Any successful person has failed many, many times. So
I want to guess. I want to guess though. Let me just guess. I'm going to guess. Okay.
Right.
Then you tell me if I'm right or wrong. But I'm going to guess during the time they taught to leverage up on your property.
Nope. I was at a 30% loan to value, brother.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I only owed 30 cents on the dollar, and I went upside down. By 2009, I was upside down. My portfolio dropped more than 70%. So, but that's not what pulled me down. It's the values that are irrelevant. In fact, I wrote a book about this. The subtitle's The New Rules of Real Estate Investing, i.e. the new rule is focus on freaking cash flow. What pulled me down, and the lesson I got was that if I'm going to buy and hold, for God's sakes, I'm going to do multifamily. Now, I think your strategy where you give someone ownership and they're paying a note is, when they've got a pride of ownership, that's a completely different dynamic. But the big thing that killed me, I'm not against single family. I mean, I've owned 2,000 of them. I've hopefully, I've got a little credibility when I'm talking about this. And the big thing that killed me was I had houses 2 hours north and 2 hours south and everywhere in between. And here's what killed me. First of all, Florida has no state income tax, so the property taxes are much higher here, okay? Secondly, I had properties in wind and flood zones. The insurance on that is high, and that's, again, all impacting cash flow. But there were two big things. One was, if I sent a maintenance guy to one of my apartment complexes, everything's the same. So we could stockpile plumbing guts and toilets and locks and appliance parts and HVAC parts. And I could send a guy and he could be in and out in an hour. Well, if I had to send somebody an hour or hour and a half north or south to go to a house, they'd have to go there to see what's wrong first, assess that. Then they'd have to go find a Home Depot or a Lowe's where we have an account. And then, if you've ever fixed anything, you get started and you realize you need something else. And by the time, what would take an hour to make at a apartment, one of my apartment complexes would take all day at a house. And you multiply that times 800. And I had C-class houses. So a lot of maintenance, ongoing maintenance. So that was one big, huge piece. But the second, the coup de grace was I had mostly C-class houses. So the people that were renting my houses were primarily in retail, or they were contractors. They were jobbers, plumbers, electricians, drywallers, roofers, painters, all of that. And as you know, I'm sure you went through this, that fell off a cliff in 08 and 09. So these guys didn't have work. And so, that was like the straw. And it was very, very painful. And I hid under a rock for a couple of months, maybe even a little longer than that. But again, it was the mindset that got me back. So the lesson was, for me, the logistics, and I believe in multiples. I'd rather have a 10-plex than 10 houses now. And again, I've had 2,000 houses. So
just so I can point out the differences, and I'm not saying either, there's not a right or wrong way to do this business, in my opinion. You find a way a strategy that you like or that fits your area or fits your personality, and you just win at it. So, I mean, there's ways to win in every category.
Sure.
But so what happened with me was I had sold my house as owner financing. And I'm with you. I learned a long time ago that houses too far away were just, even though they were simple problems, they were too hard to deal with.
Yeah.
So I bought all my houses within an hour of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And most of them in my town, right in my town.
That works. Yeah, that works.
The second part of that was I was selling my houses on a note. It wasn't my house anymore. It wasn't my air conditioner. It wasn't my hot water heater. I just received the mortgage payment. So a lot of that stuff in the recession didn't affect me because
I'm sure you had some foreclosures. I mean, the only disadvantage with single family when you're carrying paper is you have to foreclose versus evict, and the foreclosure process certainly is more lengthy than an eviction and more costly. But they were their homes, and they had a pride of ownership. And I've done something similar in Memphis. I did something similar where I'd give people really it wasn't really a sale. I called it a long-term option. I gave them a 30-year option that they paid down on every month. And
Florida's foreclosure process is way more difficult than Texas. But let's stay in the groove here. So you went, and the circumstances buried you beyond recovery, and so you did what sounds like perfectly normal, kind of went in a hole, got your panic over with, finished kicking the dog up and down the street, and then you said, okay, now what do I do?
Right. So what I did, well, again, I could talk about the mechanics, but I'd sure love to talk about the mindset that it took to get back up. So if you'll humor me, I'd really like to go there. Okay. Yeah. I formed another company. I built a litigation support company, turned into a $10 million business with 60 employees, sold it last year. But it really was all mindset, man. Because what you focus on grows, whether it's positive or negative. And so, I had to redirect my focus, and I'd love to give your listeners some strategies for doing that, because it's so easy. With the coronavirus and everything going on, it's so easy to get caught up in fear right now or to focus on negative. But again, wherever focus goes, energy flows, and it gets bigger. Like, for example, they asked Mother Teresa if she was anti-war. She said, no, I'm pro-peace. And that's what I'm talking about here. So let me take your listeners through a process. It takes me about an hour to do this in my live events, hour and a half, but I can talk about it in 5 minutes. Okay. Now, if somebody wants to actually let me guide them through this, they can go to my Rod Khleif official Facebook page. And on January 1st, New Year's Day, I did this for about an hour and 20 minutes, and I can walk you through it with music, and there's a free guide. You can download the whole thing. But what you need to do. Mm-hmm.
We're going to direct everybody to reinvestorsummit.com/Khleif, Khleif. Is that right?
All right. Fine.
And we'll get everything they have over there. We'll have anything you talk about here. It'll be over there.
Fantastic. So the thing you want to do, guys, is pick an hour. And if you have the ability to pull over, if you're listening to this, pull over and take a couple quick notes. I'll do this real quick. But you want to pick an hour when you have a lot of energy. You want to make sure you're well hydrated. As I get a drink of water. You don't do it right after you have a meal, but you sit down and you literally write down everything you could ever possibly want in life. Now, of course, all the stuff, write down all the stuff. I just got literally the last 2 weeks, I got jet skis and a boat, stuff like that, motorcycles, cars, houses. Write down all the stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. And by the way, take the lid off your brain, because but just the simple act of writing it down triggers something called your reticular activating system, which is that subconscious filter in your brain that filters out what it thinks is most important. Greatest example is when you first buy a car. You never really notice them. You buy the car and they're everywhere. And were they there before? Of course they were. So, and don't limit yourself. You are only limited by what's between your ears. So if you want to write down a yacht or a private jet or a private island, whatever it is, write it down. Because I will tell you that starts the process. And I'll give you a great example of this in a minute. So write down all the stuff. Write down how much money you want in the bank in a few years. How much do you want in the bank in 10 years? Write down how much cash flow you want in, say, 3 years and in 10 years. And then I also want you to write down what you want to do in this lifetime. Maybe there's somewhere you want to travel. Like I've got a travel vision board now where places I've been I want to go to again, or places I haven't been I want to go. So where do you want to travel? Maybe what do you want to do? Climb mountains, whatever it is. And like me, I jumped out of a perfectly good airplane about eight months ago. I'll never freaking do it again, but it's off the list. And so, what do you want to do? Write that down. Also write down what you want to learn this lifetime. Maybe you want to write a book, but maybe you want to learn a foreign language. Write that down. Me, I'm going to learn how to play the drums. And I live in a compound now, and one of the buildings has my drum set my wife bought me, and it's set up, but I don't even know what end of the stick to use yet. But I'm going to learn how to play those damn drums, okay? So what do you want to learn? Write that down. And lastly, so it's everything you want to do, be, or have. It's not just the stuff. It's not just some New Year's resolutions. And you don't want to let the pen leave the paper. If you're analytical, don't stop to analyze it. Just keep writing and keep the momentum, breathe deep, and keep your energy up. Lastly, write down who you want to help, because we will do more for others than we'll ever do for ourselves. So maybe you want to do something for your kids or your parents or your siblings. I bought my parents a house on a canal here in Florida, bought them a car, took them on cruises. Who do you want to help? Write that down. Then once you can't think of another thing, there's a couple more steps. I want you to put a time limit on each goal. How many years you think it's going to take you to achieve it? And you analytical ones, don't overthink this. Just guess at a number, 1, 3, 5, even 10 or 20. Realizing that as human beings, we will overestimate what we can do in a year and massively underestimate what we can do in 10 or 20 years. And I'll give you an example. When I was 18, I knew I wanted to live on the beach, and there's no beach in Denver. But I visualized palm trees and sand and waves and coconuts and the whole thing. 20 years later, I built this mansion on the beach, $8 million, 10,000 square foot property, just magnificent home. That was unthinkable when I was 18. So the point is, take the lid off your brain. Once you've got a time limit on each goal, I want you to pick your number one goal. I mean, that goal, when you get it, you're like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. That goal, write that down, put it on another piece of paper. Then I want you to pick your top 3 one-year goals, put those on another piece of paper. Okay, now you're ahead of 99.9% of the people on the planet, okay? But there's one more step. I want you, because the goals will pull you, they'll propel you, but it's why those goals are an absolute freaking must. That's the critical fuel here. And that's what this is. This is the fuel to get you to push past comfort and push past fear to actually take action. So I want you to write down a paragraph for each goal, why it's an absolute freaking must for you to achieve it. Things like, so I can show my wife what success looks like, or my husband, so I can show my children what it means to be successful, so we can have freedom to do whatever we want, whenever we want, wherever we want, bring whoever we want. Whatever it is for you, write it down and use emotionally charged words. Words are very, very powerful. So use words like amazing and beautiful and incredible, because words will juice you. And then once you've got a positive reason why for each goal, that's an absolute must, I want you to do one little piece. I want you to put some pain in there if you don't achieve it. Put things like, so I don't feel like a failure, so I don't live a life of regret, so I don't fail my children, so I don't fail my spouse. Because again, we'll do more to avoid pain than gain pleasure. And so, I tell you, we don't want regrets, guys. There was a hospice nurse in Australia. Her name was Bronnie Ware, and she counseled hospice patients at the end of their lives, and she asked them a question. She wrote a book about this, but the question was, what regrets do you have? And the book's called The 5 Regrets of Dying. You know what the number one regret was, Mitch? It was not living the life I could have lived, living someone else's life, not living to my potential. And I say, that's so sad. You don't even want to consider that, guys. So put the positive and negative reasons why. And then the last piece is you must get pictures of your goals. I'll give you a couple of quick public examples of this. One was Jim Carrey. When he was flat broke, wrote himself a check for $10 million and used to go up to the Hollywood sign and look at it. And that's how much money he made for Dumb and Dumber. But I'll give you a recent example, which just popped up. Demi Lovato, 10 years ago, posted on social media that she was going to sing in the Super Bowl. That was her goal. And she sang in this last Super Bowl. But let me give you a couple personal examples. So when I was 18, I was going to be a broker. I was going to, and sell people houses. That's how I thought I was going to be wealthy, because I have my mom's experience. And so I bought this 4-door Ford Granada, this bone ugly freaking bench seat in the front Granada, and just ugly. But it was a 4-door because I figured I had to have a 4-door car to show houses, right? Well, I worked with a guy that had 2 Corvettes, and he let me drive one. And that's a critical piece as well, that experiential piece. Well, within, I got a picture out of a magazine. I mean, this is before you could spell internet. I got a picture out of a magazine of a Corvette, and I put it on the visor of that bone ugly Granada. So every time I got in, it was like right there in front of me. Within a year or two, I had a beautiful Corvette. Now, I'll give you a couple more quick examples. But I want to pre-frame this by saying this is not me bragging, because this stuff I'm going to share with you doesn't interest me anymore, but it's great to hopefully inspire you as to the power of this. So, this is back when the TV show Magnum PI was out, and the actor's name was Tom Selleck. And he was the detective, and he drove this awesome Ferrari 308. And I thought that was the coolest freaking thing I'd ever seen. So I got a picture of that actual car and put it on the visor of my Corvette. Within a year or two, I had a Maserati look just like it. Last example, car example. I'm the guy that always wanted a Lamborghini. I had posters in my bedroom growing up of the Lamborghini Countach and pictures of, bikinis and, the whole thing, and what's interesting is my son collected models of exotic cars, and he had a model of the exact same color and style Lamborghini that I ended up getting. So guys, get pictures. In fact, I don't know if you put this on YouTube. Do you put these on YouTube, Mitch? Yeah. Okay. So this is my planner. Okay. It's on today. In the back of this thing, I've got pictures that have been in here literally 20 years. Okay. They're in plastic. They're dog-eared. The first pictures are pictures of my kids when they were very young. They're my gratitude pictures, because guys, everything starts from a place of gratitude. So these are my gratitude pictures. Then there are pictures of things that I wanted. So that house on the beach, what's crazy is this top picture, the glass and the travertine floor, is exactly what my house looked like. But what's even crazier is this lower, and this was before I ever had the house, okay? This lower picture, I don't know if you can see it, Mitch. You see the wall there, the concrete wall? Look behind me, brother. Is that freaking insane? It's the same freaking wall in my compound that I live in now. I live in a compound now. There's 6 buildings. Giant main house, beautiful 2-bedroom guest house. I've got a media building with a theater room, a video studio, an incredible exercise facility. But what's funny is, because God's got a sense of humor, I lost the big house over there that I built, that mansion. I lost it in all the craziness. But because God's got a sense of humor, I can see it out in my backyard. It's right over the bay from where I live now. But anyway, these pictures work. Watches. I've got a few $100,000 worth of freaking watches, because I thought that was stupid shit. I thought was important. The Lamborghini before I ever got it. The Rolls Royce, the Bentley, all this stuff that I got that I thought was important, but I got it because I had pictures. So those of you analytical ones that are thinking, oh, this is a little too foofy, big mistake, my friends. Anyway, drop the mic.
I did the same thing. I built my house out of my pocket. When I poured the slab, I had $53 left to my name, my entire net worth. And I had pictures of every room and everything I wanted. And I found that scrapbook here recently. And it was amazing to me how I didn't even realize that I was accomplishing them one at a time. But I looked back to the scrapbook and said, oh, my gosh.
See, I didn't realize what I was doing either. When that movie, The Secret, came out, I'm like, holy shit, that's what I've been doing. I got everything in the back of this book with one exception. I'll show it to you. I've never showed this before. I never got my 6-pack, but everything else I got, man. So a 6-pack is still on the list, but guys, this stuff works. I'm just telling you. And that experiential piece is really important. Like for example, I took my wife to the Amalfi Coast in Italy, and I saw these amazing yachts, and I'm like, babe, we're going to rent or buy a yacht. We're going to go from Spain down around the boot of Italy, Greece, Croatia, Venice, all that. And so I've got pictures of yachts now, and I went to the Miami Boat Show like 4 months ago, and I BS'd my way onto some big yachts, sat in the captain's chair, laid on the bed, visualized myself owning it, because it freaking works, guys. So trust me on this. If you want more, and I know you do if you're listening to Mitch, make sure you're very clear on what you want, and more importantly, why you want it. It's the why that'll drive you.
And I like that part about the pain. Throw some pain in there.
Oh, you bet, man. We do more to avoid pain for sure. And we'll do more to help others as well. So make sure you've got that in there. What are you going to do for your family, people that matter? Very, very important.
Rod, you're very inspiring. You speak with a very high level of passion, and that only comes from at least two things. One, you really believe in what you're doing, and two, you must be good at it, or you wouldn't be doing it all this time. Because, so what do you offer?
Well, let me say this to you, my friend, because before I talk about the things that I'm doing, it's funny. I started my podcast 3 years ago, and we're about to hit 8 million downloads. So, but people are like, and when I first started, I'll never sell you anything because I just want to add value. I want to help you. I want to add value. I took free phone calls from listeners. But to answer your question, what drives me, you can see behind my green screen, there's a few of the hundreds of thank you cards that I get from my listeners and coaching students and people who've been impacted by my work. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you I get at least 3 a day, either emails, DMs, or handwritten cards or gifts from people. And that's why we do this, right, Mitch? I mean, we freaking love what it is we do. We're changing lives. And I mean, I work on Sundays now. In fact, I told you I just bought the boat and the jet skis because I'm finally like, what, I do need to take some time and, and enjoy what I'm doing here. But I do love the work. So, work is play. But what I do now, and once I hit 1 million downloads, I'm like, what, I better do something with this. And now I'm a liar because I do sell stuff. I have courses and coaching and stuff. It was never my intent. It's like you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. I never planned to do anything with that podcast. I was going to use it to raise money for deals and to tell people about my experience with single family versus multifamily. But
the problem is I was doing it all for free too, but I wasn't getting the emotional reward that I wanted because a lot of the people that weren't putting anything up were not really applying themselves, and I was really wasting my time because they weren't that serious.
Yeah, that's a key piece.
For my service, I started finding the people that I could get across a line, that would go across the line, which is what I wanted. I wanted the emotional reward of saying, I helped this guy quit his job. He doesn't need a job anymore. He knows how to fish. He can fish all day long.
Yep. Same here, buddy. Same here. And I've got students that retired. I've got students that I just got it. Literally this morning, I got an email from one of my students. Hey, with my passive cash flow, I bought that $1 million farm. I convinced my wife only a small piece of the cash flow is paying for that farm. And he described it, sent me pictures. Literally that today, I could screen share and show you because I literally just got it today. And I mean, that's why we love what we do, man. And anyway, so what I started doing is I wrote a book. I gave away 20,000 copies for free of my book. It's 200 pages. I mean, it's kick-ass. And finally, my team's like, hey, knucklehead, let's put it on Amazon and make some money. So it's on Amazon. It's a bestseller in 3 categories. But in its place, I created this tool book. It's 70 pages. It's called the Multifamily Property Tool Book. And it's like, if you're interested in multifamily, this is not for single family, so your listeners may not get value of this, but if you're interested in a duplex or any multifamily, this thing's like a due diligence checklist on steroids. And if you text Rod to 41411, I'll give you a copy and you can throw it in your show notes on your thing as well. But it's kick butt. I mean, there's no sales in here. It's no fluff. And it's an incredible piece. So again, Rod to 41411. But so I give away tons of free stuff, and now I do these 4 sold out live events a year. I've got an event coming up in Orlando, May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And let me give you listeners, I'll give them a break. It's already early bird. It's still early bird pricing, so the pricing's fantastic anyway. But if they use the code Mitch, I'll give them $100 off. And it's, this event is just me for 3 daes. You are drinking through a fire hose for 3 days, my friend, if you come. But I'm here to tell you.
What's the topic of the event?
Multifamily real estate. It's called the Multifamily Boot Camp. It's how to buy apartments.
So just to be clear, I have my strategy that I teach, but my podcast is to introduce all the different strategies to find
good.
For the person out there. I don't care. They pick mine, they pick yours. Just go win. Win.
Yeah. Love it.
People got different aptitudes and different markets and everything else. So
different asset classes, everything. I mean, maybe you want storage buildings or retail or office or whatever. Mine is multifamily, and I freaking love it. I believe in it. I mean, we bought 1,000 doors last year. We've got 800 under contract now. We're actively buying very, very heavily. And I teach you how to buy apartment buildings in 3 days. But more importantly, I teach you the mindset so that you actually take action with what you learn. And so we spend time on that. On Saturday night, I have a panel. See, I I host the largest multifamily mastermind, I think, in the world. We've got about 7 billion in assets in there, and my mastermind members come. So I usually have somewhere between 2 and 3 billion in assets represented by the panelists on stage answering your questions. So it's drinking through a fire hose. It's a kick in the butt. It's, I don't bring in outside speakers to sell you crap like everybody else does. It's just me. And again, it's rodinorlando.com, rodinorlando.com. And if you use the code Mitch, I want to give your listeners $100 off. I promise you'll be glad you came. And, you know, if you want to be sold on it, I host the largest multifamily Facebook group on the planet. There's 32,000 people in there, and there's no promotion in there allowed at all. And if you go to multifamilycommunity.com, it's a direct link to that Facebook group, and just go in there and put in the word boot camp to see what people say about the event. And you'll see hundreds of unsolicited testimonials about the impact that it's had on people's lives. So anyway, I'd love to see you there. Mitch, I'd love to see you there, brother.
I would love to come.
Well, you're invited as my VIP guest if you can make it, my friend. So
I will definitely consider it. You know, It's about time to wrap up. We never have enough time on this, but you guys, we're going to have, I know this stuff went by kind of fast. If you go over to reinvestorsummit.com/Khleif, Khleif, I'm going to have all this over here. I'll have the dates. I'll have the promotion code. You don't have to remember this stuff. It'll all be over there. By the way, Rod, my people are used to going over there to the show notes and getting everything.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. Awesome. Love it.
That giveaway of his book. I think it's great. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you, my friend. I did all the talking, but I appreciate you giving me that opportunity.
I love your energy. It makes me want to go myself. So
awesome.
I show up.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend.
So I'd like to thank all the listeners out there for taking time to stop by and get you some Rod Khleif. And please go to the show notes, reinvestorsummit.com/Khleif, Khleif, and check out my sponsor, taxfreefuture.com. You won't believe what your financial advisors are not telling you. We're going to tell you what they're not telling you. We're going to tell you why, and then you do with it what you want. All right, this is Mitch Stephen with the Real Estate Investor Summit podcast. Rod, we're out of here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, brother. Take care.